It has nothing to do with us. It's all about you and your meeting.
Well, usually on Wednesday mornings when I'm with you guys, I'm usually just sitting in my dining room, and I usually am dressed pretty well, at least from the waist up. So, all right. So it's an exciting time. Do we have more people getting on? It's only 9:02. 11:02. Should I wait a minute or?
No, I think you're cool to go. There'll probably be
All
more
right.
coming up, so.
All right. So I'm really excited about first the chance to be here today, the platform idea that Paul's doing. And I've told other people that I coach about how Paul is really kind of taking the shift of the market and, taking responsibility by saying, hey, let's look at the ways that, that people that are overcoming the shift are working and kind of using the 8 different platforms as a way to say, step by step, are you doing these things? Keep in mind, in my personal opinion, step number 1 of the platform has to be something that we all work on day in and day out. Step number 2, of course, which is create your brand and make sure all your marketing platforms are consistent with your branding message. That might seem less important, but it shows up all the time. I'm going to give you an example. Just part of my brand is the way I dress. All right, just an example for you. Think about what your brand is that gets expressed whether you intend it to or not. All right, because I fly a lot on Southwest, I'm usually one of the first 10 or 15 people on the flight, and I'm almost always dressed. When I was a little boy, getting on an airplane was like going to church. You always got dressed up. Yes, I'm older than everyone in this room, so it's okay, but you might not remember that. But when I got on the flight today, 2 much younger than me flight attendants said, "Oh my gosh, thank you." That's what they said, "Thank you," as I'm walking down to the exit row so I can have plenty of room for my legs. And I go, "You're welcome for what?" And they go, "For still dressing up to get on a plane." That's what they both said. And one couldn't have been more than 30 something. The other lady was probably in her 50s. And I said, "Oh, well, I love getting dressed up. And I remember the day when getting on a plane meant you get dressed up. That's now part of my brand." And it goes way back because I never thought about it until recently when someone asked me how was high school. And I remember I was called the best dressed senior too when I was in high school. And I remember having a big thing about never wanting to wear a pair of jeans to school because everybody else wore jeans to school, right? And as you grow older and you start to understand, this is now in my 40s and I'm learning about DISC, and maybe my late 30s. My early 40s, I learned about DISC and understanding behavior. Well, I found out that I have a very low C, a very low C, extremely low, like down at the bottom, like a 1 on a scale of 1 to 100. I have a 1, okay, for my C. Well, a low C, people said, "Oh, well, you're not detail oriented. You not pay attention to details." What else a very low C means is I don't want to do what everybody else is doing. I don't care if you tell me it's the right way to do it. I'm going to find my own way to do it. I call it affectionately the FU gene. And it's a gene in your body. When you have a super low C, you're basically flipping everybody else off, saying, "I don't care how you do it. I'm going to do it my way." And it's not always beneficial in life and business and relationships. Okay. But yet, when I think back now about how I was in school, you wear jeans? I don't want to wear jeans. Everybody wears jeans. I don't want to wear jeans. Then was it really because it was part of my brand, or was it because of part of my behavior? All of that becomes your brand. What do people know you as? As I grew up in the real estate industry in Fremont, California, in 1989, my 9th year in the business, I started to MC charity events as a way of giving back to my community. Secretly, though, I thought, gosh, if I MC charity events, I'm going to be in front of a lot of people and I'll get a more opportunity to tell people I'm a realtor. Here's my card if you ever need to buy or sell. Well, as a matter of fact, after 33 years of MCing charity events, guess what? I picked up, I can't even count the number of houses I sold as a result of being an MC. It became part of my brand. Rick was when my mother died and they did the obituary, I couldn't even believe it. The obituary said, "Mother of local famous philanthropist realtor dies." I'm like, what? My mother had one of the most famous restaurants in town. Instead of saying local popular restaurant owner dies, they go mother of local philanthropist realtor. Remember, your brand is sometimes created without you knowing it, but it's something that you're acting like and consistently being like all of the time. Again, I know you guys are sick of this, but I always either use Sarah or Sherry as examples. I'm going to use Sherry Such as an example because she comes out of the nonprofit world into real estate. And I remember when I first coached her when she was on Paul's team, and I said, how can you use that nonprofit world to benefit your real estate business? And how can you use your real estate business to benefit your nonprofit world? So remember, these are all your brands. Okay. Now think about how you're being, what do you do all the time, right? Like that is consistent with your brand. And so when people, I told you guys this before, but when people would, hear about my story about 9 Keller Williams franchises and losing my homes and a divorce to my wife and losing all my retirement, my savings, trying to keep these doors open on these 9 Keller Williams offices, they go, Rick, I've known you for years. I didn't know any of that. I go, yeah, because I was going to put all that on Facebook, right? What's been my brand? My brand is about lifestyle and happiness and success, not about failure. And yes, it took all that failure for me to get where I am. So I'm going to ask you to look at Paul's first number 1 platform and number 2 platform, of course, about branding. That's not really what I wanted to talk to you about today, but it's vital in that you have to realize everything. I don't think any of you are in real estate for the short term. Even though when I got into real estate in 1980, I used to tell my uncle, who was my broker, I'm not doing this for long. I'm certainly not doing it for a living. Well, guess what? He's been dead for, 30 years this year. Is his 30-year anniversary of his death. And here I am 42 years later, still selling real estate. So he was right. I was wrong. However, if I think about what got created was I realized I had more of a passion to help people than I ever knew. Okay. I realized that I could help people and make a buttload of money at the same time, which was a benefit to my family and me, not just me. Right. So these things you start to realize. I'm going to go off subject for a minute and ask you guys, how many of you have heard of this thing called StoryWorth? Anybody heard of StoryWorth but me? So my one son is married, my other son is engaged. But so I say my sons and their wives, even though one of them's not a wife yet, gave me this as a gift. And I'm going to encourage you. How many of you in the room have a living parent? One or more, grandparent, anything? Good. So I'm going to urge you all to give StoryWorth to your parents as a gift, no matter how old they are. I don't think it would be as appropriate given certain diseases out there, but I think it's a wonderful gift. And what this does is it sends you a question once a week that you answer about your life. And every once in a while, the children or whoever gave it to you as a gift can hand pick a question and say, answer this question. And then what happens is they make this book. And at any point, the people that gave it to you can say, all right, let's take all those answers, put it in a beautiful book, put a picture. I got it. Well, I got this gift for Christmas. And every week I get a new question. So when I'm on an airplane or I have time alone, I look at my StoryWorth questions. I'm a little backed up on questions and I answered. The answer today was literally 5 or 6 pages long that I typed on the airplane flight. And the reason I say that is because something like that allows you to really search, because you're answering these questions and they're going to show them to your unborn grandchildren and your unborn great-grandchildren long after you're gone. So you have that responsibility to answer these questions. And I don't know if you can buy it for yourself, but if I had known about this, I would have bought it for myself and sent it to my kids. And so my daughter-in-law is the one who, it's one thing to be flattered that they gave you the gift, but to be thinking that they're thinking about this all the time. My daughter-in-law is pregnant with my very first grandchild. And every once in a while, she'll send me a text. She goes, you kind of backed up on StoryWorth questions. Could you find time to answer another one soon? And I know that when I type it all out and then it immediately goes to my wife because they added her to the gift, my son, his girlfriend, my other son, and his wife. Everybody gets the answer immediately, but they can also do that. So I start thinking, how much of this is about my brand? Well, guess what? I didn't know about brand when I was younger. but it really starts to show up. My answers start to show up as who I branded myself to be, but not only to the public, but to myself. In other words, you can't fake the brand, guys. The public figures it out by your energy and by how you're showing up in the world. All right. So these are very important things in today's world, because I can tell you that the number one thing that you must include in your brand today to be realized and noticed by the public, because who is the public? The public is Gen Z, the millennial generation, Gen X, and the baby boomers. That makes up the entire public. Okay. And if you're younger than Gen Z, they really don't care about you because they're too young to give a damn. But I can tell you this, that they are really big on authenticity, all of them, because they can see through it. And that's why when you see people teaching you about doing social media and doing video, what's the number one thing they say on all the lessons I've learned, watching YouTube, watching TikTok, is just be you. And if you screw up, be you, right? And nothing is more endearing to me than watching the Olympics and seeing somebody fall and get up and keep going and not act or not go, oh, I'm so sorry, I fell. They just keep going. That's us. We got to do that in real estate. I fell many times in real estate, but it was the only thing I knew how to do well. So what did I have to do? I got up and I kept doing it. All right. This is that market. A lot of us fell when we felt the shift in the market. And now we have to get up and keep being our brand, being who we are, being authentic. Now, remember, I am my most authentic where? To my wife and up. What is up? Meaning to my team, they never get to see me stress out. They never get to see me be depressed. So when we say you light up going down and you can light down going up, what does that mean? That means if I was in Paul's office and I was having a rough day, but I had the Rick Geha team, well, the Rick Geha team would not know I had a rough day. But then I might go into Paul's office and shut the door and say, Paul, crap, I'm having a rough day, man. Talk me off the ledge, right? Everybody needs that person. Who is that person for you? Now, is there any men in here who have ever vented to a female, to a woman, and had the woman start to give suggestions to fix it, and the man stopped and said, honey, I don't want you to fix it. I just want you to listen. Okay, no men have ever had that happen because women don't do that. They're really good at listening. Now, if the men do, when women try to do that with a man, guess what they do? The man goes, oh, I can help with that. And you're like, shut up. I just want to vent. Can you just hear me? Hear me out, right? Night before last at dinner, we were just looking for a quick place to have a bite, and across the street from our condo is lots of restaurants. So we just picked one that would be the quickest and walked in, and I was looking at my phone, finishing up text, and I put my phone down and put it on mute, face down on the table. And my wife looked at me and said, are you in a position to hear me and not be distracted? Well, I've heard that sentence before. What does that mean? I want to vent and I don't want you to fix anything. I just want you to listen. I know that. I'm programmed. All right. Why am I saying this? What does this have to do with your real estate sales business? It has to do with paying attention to the signs. All right. There's a song by the 5-man electrical band from 1971 called Sign, Sign, Everywhere a Sign. I want all you young people that weren't even born in 71 to look it up. It's a great song. It was my favorite song today. Even when it comes on, I start singing it. But it's really not so much about the words of the song, but what it is about the signs and noticing the signs and paying attention to what's going on, mostly with you. Now, I think Paul told me that on 9/21, which is, I think, a week from today at 11 a.m., Paul, I think you're going to have a panel of a bunch of agents that are doing amazing in the shift. Is that true?
Correct.
Okay, good. How many of you knew that before I just said it? It's okay. Be loud, be obvious. Okay, Sarah did. All right. The reason I say that is because that would be something I would watch if I could. That would be something I would listening to even at this stage in my life. So this meeting I'm going to today, the meeting is after a panel. I have to be in a meeting after a panel, and the panel is 5 top producers who are killing it here in Orange County. And they're all from different companies during the shift. And I'm so excited because as a real estate agent, I want nothing more than to hear that. Might I hear something that I already know? Yes, but here is 100% chance that I'll hear something that I already know that I'm not doing. I always like asking that. I've asked you guys that before. I said, how many of you in this room, remember, I think I did it last month or the month before, know something to do that would help your business, but you're not currently doing it? And everybody in the room raised their hand. And if you've been a realtor for more than a year, you got to always raise your hand on that because you always know something. And I always ask myself, then why do people keep going to seminars? Why not take the time you would have been in the seminar and do the damn thing that you know to do that you're not currently doing? Well, we need that seminar to light our ass on fire so that we'll go back and do the one thing that we know to do that we weren't doing. Make sense? I think the only 2 people getting this are Andy and Sarah because they're laughing their butts off, but I can't tell if Carly is because Paul's blocking her. So
She's laughing, I heard her.
okay. So, but these are very, what we call salient points. Oh, I'm kidding, Paul. You didn't have to do that. I can't see the whole room anyway. So Carly, did you miss me while Paul blocked my view? I know you can still see me up on the screen. All right. So the most important part about this, and I'm pretty fired up about it because I gave my team, my wife often overhears my daily huddle with my team, only we don't do the daily huddle. We do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, not every single day. But she heard me on Monday say, Wednesday, I won't be on the huddle. So your assignment for Friday is to come back with one idea that you have to gain business in September that you are willing to execute in September. Just one. It can be as simple as an open house and it can be as complicated as a TikTok. I don't care. Come back with your idea. Only give me the idea if you're willing to do it yourself in the month of September to bring one piece of new business to the table. Now, remember, I'm the team leader. That means I benefit from any business they bring. They also benefit from any business I bring, right? So it's a win-win situation. Why did I ask that? Because I wanted them to think about all the things they've been taught, all the things they've learned, all the things they hear at seminars and classes, and they hear me preaching all the time. You ever heard the term, you can't be a prophet in your own village, right? Literally, I got a call from Coon Rapids, Minnesota this morning at 8:15 Minnesota time, which was 6:15 my time, asking me to do a Zoom business planning clinic. And when I told them the cost, all of a sudden they didn't want me to do the Zoom business planning clinic. All right, I didn't lose any sleep over it, but my conscience got to me because I thought, gosh, I really like helping people and it doesn't have to be about the money. So I said to the person, hey, if the money is the only stopping point, let me know that. Come back and let me know that, and I'll see what I can do to adjust to fit your budget. Because I'd rather give a business planning clinic and help a bunch of agents I don't know have a better life and business than not do it, even if the money isn't right. Because at the end of the day, when I finish a Zoom, I'm still in my dining room and the refrigerator's only a few steps away. All right. But originally the question that this lady in Coon Rapids had was, would you fly here and do it? And I said, yes, for $10,000. And she goes, holy crap, what? I go, you'll either pay it or you'll realize how little I want to fly anywhere anymore. And she goes, you're on your way to the airport. I go, it's an hour flight. It's like I drove. I said, and I'll be back this afternoon and I'll sleep in my own bed. That's not happening if I fly to Minnesota. And I don't care that much about money anymore. I'd rather sleep with my wife in my own bed every night and wake up in the beautiful surroundings where I live. Things have become more important to me. Do you get that? Did I know she's never going to pay me 10 grand? Yeah. I asked her to pay me $1,500 for a 90-minute business planning clinic, and she still balked at it. I'm okay. No ego left. I don't care. Hire me, don't hire me. In the end, I'm probably going to do it for free anyway. I don't care. I just want to help people along the way. So I'm going to ask you this. You all have a desire. We determined that many months ago that you all have an innate desire to help other people. At the same time, you don't want to be broke. You want to help yourself. You want to bring money home to the family so the kids can have what they want. So you, like we said it last month, who the freak wants a broke December? No one. Okay. Even my friends and my wife, who are Jehovah's Witnesses, who don't celebrate Christmas, hate broke Decembers. Okay. You don't have to celebrate a holiday to not like being broke. What I mean by that is this: if you don't walk away today inspired enough to do one thing that will move you more forward in this shifting market, I'm not going to go to bed tonight pissed off at myself because I didn't do my job. You go to bed pissed off that you didn't do your job. Okay. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about the 8 platforms. Maybe today after this call, review them really quickly. More than that, I want you to think, why are some people succeeding at the level they want and I'm not a comparison. Please don't do that. Okay. I find myself doing it. I did it yesterday. It's depressing to compare yourself. You're doing amazing things that those other people, and you don't know what it is like living in their footsteps. And you learned many years ago in the 90s to not wish for someone else's life because you never know what's going on in it. Be very happy with the one you have. Believe me, when I hear about other people's trials and tribulations, I go like this and I say, thank you, Lord, for the amazing life you've given me. With its trials and tribulations, I'd rather have mine than someone else's. All right. So let's start with that. Let's not be comparing. Let's just look at where we can learn from other people, model ourselves. Anthony Robbins says the most successful people in the world are professional modelers. They just model themselves after somebody have done it better, have somebody that has done it better than them before them. All right. So they're out doing that. Follow those models. Now we know the one model. Look, Gary Keller made the words, the one thing, very famous in a book, but long before he wrote the book, about 10 years before he wrote the book, we had classes at Keller Williams Family Reunions called The One Thing. And what do you think the one thing meant? I'm the one who taught it at almost every family reunion. I was the guy who taught the class called The One Thing. And it was about the one thing. And the question was, what is the one thing that if you did more of it and did it regularly, everything else would become easier or unnecessary? And that one thing is lead generation, the power of lead generation. What's the one thing? Generate leads, right? So, Paul, I'm asking this of you because I don't know. Do you guys have Redfin in your area? That might sound stupid, but do you?
Very small.
Okay.
A small office. Yeah. No, they don't have very many agents.
So I had a buyer's agent on my team in 2015. She was there from 13, 14, and 15. And I knew her. I'd known her since 91, because I hired her to do open houses as an unlicensed hostess back in the 90s. So she was on my team, and every time she'd have a buyer, she'd have a million questions. Rick, how do I write the contract? How do I do this? And she just wasn't making a lot of money. And one day she comes to me and she says, I'm leaving the team. I go, oh my gosh, congratulations. Where are you going? And she said, I've been hired by Redfin to be a salaried listing agent. I said, Joanne, I know you're a single mom and you don't have benefits. I'm very happy for you. I said, you're going to get what? 50, 60,000 a year. She goes, 55,000 plus benefits. She goes, then every time I list a house and it closes, I get a little bonus. In her first year there, she made $110,000. In her second year there, she made $200,000. In her third year, she made $300,000, all starting with a $55,000 base. She just quit Redfin and came back onto my team. I said, why are you quitting Redfin? I mean, it's been guaranteed. She said, they're not the same company they were. I don't like their style. We get these quotas, and every time I do better, the quota gets higher than I did, and I'm still one of their top listing agents. I said, well, welcome back. So I had a call with her. I said, all right, here's what I want you to do, Joanne. I want you to call the last 10 people you were in a transaction with before you left Redfin and say, how are you? And she goes, I don't have access to any of that, Rick. Everything was a work phone and everything was stripped by Redfin, work computer, everything. I had to turn it in before I left. I go, that's a crock of bull. So I got her on Zoom. I shared my screen. I went to the MLS. I took her MLS ID number. I put it in. And since she left me, I found 230 transactions in the MLS. 223. 215 of them were sellers in 7 years, and 8 of them were buyers. And I went through, and all the buyers, some of the buyers went back to being on my team. And I went through everyone. I pulled up the tax roll. I said, you remember this person? I said, oh, it's sold since you did it. Did you sell it? No, I didn't. I said, you lost a piece of business. Let's move on. So by doing that, she was able to go back, pull up the tax roll, find the name of the buyer or seller she represented, look them up either in their phone or on white pages, or she can always knock on their door because none of them live more than 20 miles from her house. She now has 223 people to call, less the ones she may have lost, to call on to create a business that she didn't have. How many would you like to have 223 past clients right this minute that you could call on and say, how you doing? What's new? What's exciting? How can I be of service to you? And then possibly turn it in. Well, guess what? The majority of you have at least 10. The majority of you have at least 20. I don't even want to guess how many Sarah Carlson has, or how many Paul Ekstrom has, or how many of you that have been in the office have. But if you were just spending time calling those people, you would not be needing to be paying attention to the emails and say, want a seller lead? Call us. We got lots of them. You would not be paying attention to all of that stuff because you don't need another shiny object. If you just shine up your phone, it will be shiny and it can be your new shiny object to play with. All right. So I keep bringing the same message because I am getting lessons during the week from other people. I felt so good for Joanne when I saw the smile on her face. Joanne's kind of a worrywart, the lady I was telling you about, and she's a little bit negative Nelly, right? And so when I said honestly, excuse the language, but on the Zoom tour, I said, Joanne, I've known you for 32 years. That's bullshit. You know tons of people before you ever went to Redfin. I said, and even if Redfin took them away forever, which they can't because you're permanently in there in the MLS where you can go read them. When I showed her how, literally 2 hours later, she's texting me, can I have you show me how you found that again really quickly? Because I didn't record it. So I recorded it the second time. I sent her the video, go watch this. Every time you forget how, watch it. But right in there was 223 potential clients. One of the ones I showed her, she had sold it to them so long ago that the price she paid, they sold it for. I said, oh my God, you sold that for $139,000. And I say, I know it's worth at least $850 now. You should be calling them. Right? So she goes, okay, that's going to be my first call. Who knows what's going to happen, but she's super excited about the simplicity of just picking up the phone and calling people you already knew in your past. I came across one buyer and I said, hey, wasn't this the buyer that we had to go to court for after they bought the home? She goes, yes. I said, Mindy Shaw, right? And she goes, yeah, how'd you remember that? I said, hello, I had to go to court. I said, I had to stand in front of the judge in a small claims suit. And what is that the day we closed escrow, the family room, we brought the client in for the walkthrough right after close, open the door. It's 11:30 in the morning. The family room floor was buckled like this. It was all smooth and then it was like this. Obviously something had a leak or something had caused it. We called the owner, we called the realtor immediately, said, hey, we took pictures, we texted it, said, dude, call your insurance company. This had to happen last night, a couple nights ago, because the house was vacant. He had left 2 weeks earlier. And they're like, no, that's your responsibility. They're like, no. It was the younger agent. I said, no, please take my advice. Just call his insurance company. They wouldn't. So we had to take him to small claim. The client fixed it, had everybody, verify in writing what was the cause of it. It was a water heater leak that had happened just a couple of days earlier anyway, long story short, we end up in small claims court. Literally, it took the judge 2 minutes to make his decision and ruled in favor of my client, $10,000 plus the damages to the family room floor, plus, because that was the most he could bid. Because we told the story about begging them to call their insurance company while it was still insured, The judge was pissed off as heck. So I said, she goes, I don't have her number. And I said, why wouldn't you have her number in your phone? I still have her number in my phone. That was like 11 years ago, right? So I gave her the number. I said, she's got to be your very first call, not the other lady. This lady's got to be your first call. So you think about the trials and tribulations you went through over the years to get your people into escrow, your people into contract. You all fought for them, right? And some of them appreciated it and some of it didn't. But here's what really takes a lot of chutzpah is to call the people that you didn't get along with and say, hey, how are you? And see if they hang up on you. I challenge you, right? It's fun, right? I did that once many years ago because I was challenged by a speaker at a seminar. He said, I dare you to go back and call those people that didn't like you at the end of the contract. And I did it, and I actually got a listing out of it. And they go, yeah, I know, we didn't like you, but I got to tell you, in the end, you helped us do something that was a great decision for our family. Hey, listen, we're thinking about selling in about 6 months. Do you want to represent us? Yes. So, all right. So the reason I have more stories is because I have a lot more years in the business, and you'll develop more and more stories the more you get into the business. But I'm going to tell you again, everything works, nothing doesn't. The question I ask you to ask yourself is, what are other people doing that I'm not doing that I could use immediately to go get me some business? All right. And I've said it before, but the main thing is, remember, our subject today was platform number 2, and your branding. Your branding can be the person that's helping people to have a better life because they bought or sold real estate. Simple, right? I've helped people sell houses. It was the only asset they have. I'm doing that right now because it's the only asset they have. And both of their kids are qualified to go to D1 colleges because people have pointed out that their children, both their son and their daughter, may be an Olympic level swimmer. The only money they have is in the house, right? And while I'd love for them to keep it, there's no way they can keep it and accomplish all their dreams and goals they have with their kids, right? So I feel so special that I got picked to help them do that. The mom's an attorney, the husband is a credit analyst, and they're just not making tons and tons of money, not the kind of money they need to put their kids in D1 schools with or without a scholarship. You see my point? So we have to, you ever heard this saying? When we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. Alter the way you're looking at your career and what's going on in it, and look at it as an opportunity, not a challenge. Think about that for a minute. What if this were an opportunity, not a challenge? What if instead of calling it a shifting market, we called it an improving market? We can change a lot of things by the way we look at stuff, all right? And if you change the way you look at things, the thing itself will change. So now when I look at the market, I go, it's a market of opportunity. September and October are going to be incredibly busy. Remember do you guys recall when I talked to you about traffic patterns? And I saw the traffic patterns go nuts, literally starting the day after Labor Day. And guess what do I know for a fact? That no matter where you were in the country between August 1st and September 10th, your kid went back to school, if your kid was in school, or you were homeschooling, but back to school. And now that leaves it over for September and October to be really busy with people buying and selling houses. Okay. Now we've seen pendings go up in the last week alone. Pendings have popped up. I'm not a prognosticator, but I've been in the market a long time. September and October will be busy, and they will be what you decide they'll be at the end of every day. And it doesn't matter what the news says, it's going to be what you decide it'll be. All right. So I'm going to stop right there. I didn't even realize I'd spoken 35 minutes without stopping, but I really want to do some ahas, some thoughts, some questions, because that's what I'm inspired by. What do you need to know or hear, or tell me what you've heard that will move you into action? Your turn.
Jump in, gang.
Any questions, comments? There's a lot on the screen with me, and there's a bunch in the room. Is that a hand up back there? I can't tell. No, that's somebody standing up in the back. Come on, somebody's got something to say. Don't sit on your... Who is that?
Sarah Carlson, you're on the call, I think, aren't you?
Yeah, she's right here with me on the screen. Yeah.
Right. Sarah, jump in. You're always good. Get the conversation started.
Okay. So what I liked is going through your list of past clients, and I am doing a newsletter. I always do a newsletter, but this time I am writing a personal note on every single one. I'm going to take an extra hours and hours and write a personal note on every single one. I used to do that like at the beginning, and it was just kind of, it was easier, whatever. And I'm like, you know what? People need to feel connected. They need to, I'm going to take an extra step and do that. I'm like, I'm already sending it out instead of sending out like a separate note card. Like, I'm just going to write a note on every single one. And then also, it was also inspiring I used to do more like personal videos, and now I hired a company to do it or whatever. And I was just busy, but you really inspired me to get back into the branding piece and still getting out there and giving my message in my own way about what's going on in the market. And a positive thing is that you can actually get a house now if you're a buyer, right? And just even a 5-second thing about how awesome that is, because it wasn't awesome for buyers. And so I think those two things have really resonated with me.
Oh, that's good to hear. That's really good to hear.
I will say one thing for me too. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Andy. I'll come back to Sarah later. Go ahead.
Sorry, Sarah. I was just going to say, I appreciated your point of being authentic on videos, because I do videos, but for every 60-second video I have, I probably got 45 outtakes. And so I am encouraged to maybe not do as many outtakes and just roll with some of the slip ups just to be authentic. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Does anybody here have Apple TV?
Yep.
Okay, so Apple TV has a movie playing called Luck, L-U-C-K. It's an animated movie. And my wife fell asleep earlier than I wanted. I wanted to watch something, but I also had to do some other things. So I turned it on and I watched it while I was doing other things. And it really had a great message. It was enjoyable to watch. There was some great voices of people that I admire, like movie stars in there. And the Queen Dragon was the voice of Jane Fonda, who I just love Jane Fonda. But the moral was really cool. So when you said that, there was a scene in the beginning of the movie, Andy, where they were filming themselves dancing, just on a phone. And all the props fell on top of the dancer. They were all light props. And, they were laughing their heads off about how silly it was. And I think about that often because, the ice skater that falls during the Olympics with millions of people watching doesn't get to erase it, right? They just keep going. So I would do that if I were you. And I think you're going to probably get more likes and more ups, it's really kind of cool. Sarah, what you had said that I wanted to add to what you said was that a lot of times everybody in this room, in the room there with Paul and David and on this screen, we might keep pretty good records on who we did business with. But I personally had a realization when I saw how many sellers that Joanne had represented, because she didn't represent any sellers all the years that I knew her before Redfin. So all of those sellers were since 2015 in the last 7 years. And when you think about that, the MLS has an undeniable record of what you did. And I would maybe encourage you all to put your number in there. You have to do it separately. One under buyer agent, put your MLS number, and one under seller agent. Don't do them at the same time, because then it's searching for when you are both. But do one search with it under buyer and one seller, and see if you don't find a deal or two where the client on either end might have not been on your database. Now, here's another thing. On your seller side, if the people that bought that home still are in it from when you did it, you have no guarantee that the agent that sold it to them is still keeping track of those people, right? And there's nothing more beautiful than if you're looking for new people to talk to, new ones, refreshing new ones, not the same old client, which is sick that you don't want to talk to them. I'm sorry, that's just sick. But if you want someone new, go into White Pages and find the name. It cost me $5 a month for White Pages to access up to 20 different phone numbers for people. 20 in a month. I hardly ever have used all 20. But you go, it's $4.99 a month, seriously. But so I go to White Pages, I look up their number and I call them and I say, hey, my name's Rick. I don't know if you remember me, but I represented the seller when you bought the house. How are you? Right? And I go, since I know the neighborhood really well, and I know you had your own realtor, I was just wondering, I'm in your neighborhood quite a bit. Is there any resources I might have that I could get for you? Do you need the name of someone to cut your lawns or babysit your children or the name of a good restaurant? Let me know. I'm always here. If I can get them to talk to me for even 2 minutes, I'll usually get their email. Okay. But if I don't have the email, I still have their phone number and their address, so I can mail to them and I can do a pop by. All right. You can win over a lot of clients because 80% of all agents don't keep track of their past clients. I hope you're not one of them. All right. Sorry, Sarah, that came all to mind when you told me what you told me. Okay. See how my mind works? I'm sick. I know I'm sick. All right. Mindy, Corey, Josh, Carrie, Tristan, or anyone in the room. Come on.
Amy.
Hi, Rick. It's Amy.
Hi, darling. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. How's your fiance?
Lovely. He's awesome.
He's so excited you called him lovely.
Yeah.
I know. She's so predictable on that question. That's why I ask it. So, okay, go ahead. What's up, baby?
My aha was when we change the way we look at things, the things that we look at change.
Yeah.
Because there's some circumstances like death and illness that are very hard to look at in a positive aspect, but
Absolutely.
things is when you're around a negative person, I find it such an intriguing challenge of combating every negative thing that they have with something positive. Because I've had many talks with Sherry about this, but once you change your life and viewing things that way and optimistically, it's so hard not to look at things that way.
That's amazing that you said that. Yeah. And, I had a big pet peeve when I was at that bread company. And the pet peeve was when everybody would say amazing sayings, they would quote Diana Kokoska or Gary Keller. And I would go freaking nuts in the audience. I go, that's not the person who said that. Like I would get all mad. So I like to give credit where credit is due. I was on a call once where someone said, well, like Diana Kokoska always says, a man never crosses the same river twice, right? Because you're a different person the next time you cross that river. And I'm like, Diana Kokoska did not say that. Diana Kokoska quoted someone. So for all of you to know, the person who said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change is Dr. Wayne Dyer. He originally said it in one of his books. And it's a really, really, all of his books that I've read, I haven't read them all, were certainly amazing. Amy, good for you for using that as an example. The hardest thing that I can do, because I have a very high S, does everyone know what that means? I'm going to tell you. It means we don't like conflict or confrontation. When you are wanting to correct somebody or be around a negative person and say, maybe if you change the way you look at things, the things you looked at would change. Like even saying that, I would be afraid of the repercussion. All right. And I had a coach tell me once, he said, this is two people, Rick, and this one is you. The reason you don't like to speak your truth is because you fear the storm that comes after it. If the storm comes after it, you tend to shy away from the storm. He said, I want you to learn to speak your truth. And when the storm comes, you just stay standing, right? And if my truth is that I want to make a difference in people's lives and there's negativity around me, I can do one of two things. I can distance myself from the negativity, even if it's family that I love dearly. I can still love them from a distance. All right? Or I can say something, right? But I don't want to say something without permission, so I can start with this. Are you open to some feedback? Or, as my wife always says, would you be open to a different perspective than yours? And those are great questions because, believe it or not, 87% of the public are geared to just say yes to that answer. And I had to have a coach once tell me, because I was so stressed out by the number of people asked me for feedback, and I'd say yes, and they'd give me the feedback and I'd hate it. And he'd go, well, Rick, why don't you just say no when they ask you? I go, I didn't know that was an option, All right. So think about that, but just, the main reason for the point was, yes, pay attention to who you surround yourself with. If the person sitting next to you, that realtor, that person that's a colleague in your industry is spewing negativity about the marketplace, about the interest rates, about them, if you can't find the positivity. Have you guys heard this saying? Because I heard it recently and I'd heard it years ago, but I just heard it again. And I've been quoting it a lot more now. When people are thinking about buying a house and they're buying it for their personal residence, which is the majority of our clients, let's be honest, probably 96% of our clients are buying property for their personal residence. I like to now say, remember, I want you to marry the property and only date the rate.
See the what?
Take the rate.
Date the rate. You're only dating the interest rate. You're not in a permanent relationship. You're going to marry the property. You're going to fall in love with it. It's going to be your property. But the interest rate, you're just dating until something better comes along and you'll date a different rate, right? When you get a 30-year fixed, then you're marrying the rate. If it's a 30-year fix that you feel like you can live with for the rest of your life. But maybe at 5.75, you're like, that's a 30-year fix. I don't like that. Okay, well, just date it. Use it for now. It'll get you your primary residence. You'll get you the interest rate tax deduction. It will get you home ownership. It will get you appreciation. And then when something better comes along, we'll grab it. Does that make sense to everybody? Marry the property, date the rate.
Love it.
Okay? It's a great saying. I just heard it again. Like I said, when did I hear it actually again? It was just a few weeks ago, I think, but it was wonderful. And now I use it a lot more. But I had heard it many years ago. I just hadn't used it in ages. So I don't know who to give credit to, but it wasn't mine. All right. So who else is back with Amy that is embarrassed that Amy spoke up and you haven't?
I don't have a problem.
Terry, Lisa, Jackie, Joe, anybody?
Terry?
Terry?
You know, I think Rick, the opportunity versus challenge, and when you were talking about branding and everything. For me personally, the last couple of years, I've honed in so much on who my target market is that it brings me kind of peace because I look at that as that's great opportunity. So
Yep.
early on in real estate, I think, you know, you're talking about try not to be everything to everybody. And that takes
Find your
time
niche,
to
yeah.
find your niche. And when you do, it just has so much clarity around it because I know what my message is. I know what the branding is. I know, it just brings you kind of to where you should go. So I would encourage people, you know, if they're maybe spinning their wheels, to just really spend time and honing in on what your brand focus is,
Yeah.
you know.
And promote your brand. You know, I
and
mean,
promote
yeah,
it, you
you've
know.
done a great job in figuring out where did you want to go with your business.
Right.
And it's happening now.
Right.
You know, your average sale price has increased exponentially the last 2 years. Okay,
Yeah.
you're moving into that level. Now it's about your brand and brand recognition and promoting yourself and your brand, because that can just keep on going. The people that are selling a $1.2 million house hang out with people that are living in $1.2 million houses. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just working on keeping your brand out there in front of them and them sharing that
Yeah.
is how you continue on.
Yeah.
So.
And then, you know, also with the senior you know, I do a lot, Rick, with the senior market too.
Yeah.
They don't care about interest rates because they're not gonna probably be buying again, or they
Yeah.
have equity in their house to pay cash. So it's like,
Yeah.
interest rate is not an obstacle for my focus. And so
Yep.
it's a
Cool.
good thing.
That's an incredible observation and I'm very grateful to you for bringing light to it because, you know, I think of the many stories when I got into real estate in 1980 because I got rejected by 13 dental schools and I already had about 75 relatives in real estate. But I had this one uncle who came from Lebanon in 1968, spoke very broken, unintelligible English, got a job at a truck factory from 68 to 71 while he learned English, got his driver's license, and then in 1971 passed his real estate test. They were ashamed of being bald. Most of my relatives on both my mom and dad's side were bald, so they all had these toupees. And I think the only difference that changed in the toupees over the years was that they bought more expensive ones as they made more money. But in his first year in real estate, he sold 85 homes. And I can remember in the 90s, all of my uncles and aunts and all of us, we all lived in this one big neighborhood, a good high-end neighborhood in the community we lived in, but certainly not by far the highest end. It was more upper middle class than it was high class. And I can remember that my uncle would cut his lawn, a push lawnmower, before the electric motors or the motorized ones were really big. and he'd be in his Gucci shoes and Gucci jeans cutting the lawn. And we would stop and see him. I was a kid and I'd go, this was in the 70s. I was a teenager. He'd say, why are you cutting your shoes and cutting the lawn in those shoes? Oh, honey, these are the most comfortable shoes I have, honey. This is what I wear, you know. And I can remember this uncle selling everything and moving to the most expensive development in the whole city. And when I said, why do you want to live there? He goes, because I want to sell those kinds of houses. Right. So he literally sold everything and moved up there so he could be around those people. And he grew his average from $500,000 in the 80s to when he passed away several years ago, his average sale price was 5.5 million, because he said, I'm only going to be around those people. I'm going to have my environment be around them. I'm going to raise my kids in that environment. So he affected a change on purpose. All right. Today, his son has an average sale price of 6.2 million. His average sale price is 6.2 million. He doesn't do as many units, but he has a lot of volume, right? So you are affecting a change on purpose. And that's what I love, because when your focus is on that, anybody that has intention and clarity will accomplish that. You seem to have been very deeply in your intention and very clear on what you want. So I have to congratulate you on that. Any of us can do that. I don't niche as much because I niche more to referrals, like wherever they send me. But I can remember the days when Fremont was my entire real estate career. Now I sell in about a 200-mile radius, but man, I can remember the niche days. And it is more difficult to do what I'm doing. And I think to myself, well, I don't want to change now, but that's a niche thing. What made me hesitate in my conversation is a cop just walked by with an automatic machine gun. And I'm like, something going on around here. I was like, they probably heard me say I was an Arab. Anyway, all right.
Quick exercise I want to do as we're buttoning this up. Okay, so everybody, I want you to think about buyers that you're working with right now. Okay, probably a lot of them are sitting on the fence, right? But people, you might have them set up on an auto search. You might have just gotten referred to them, or they contacted you saying, keep an eye out for this. Just think about active buyers that you have. The level, we're not looking at active buyers that are physically maybe looking for a house right now, want to include them in, but people that you think maybe in the next 12 months, you're going to hopefully be selling them a house. Okay, think about the number. How many of those you're working with, and everybody that's on Zoom call, put it into the chat as to how many buyers that you're put your number in is what's in your head. So what I want everybody that's in here to raise your hand and put down what your number is that's you got. So I've got 2 buyers that I'm actively working with. Okay, may not be this year, might be next year, something like that, but in the next 12 months. So raise your hand, put your number up. And Amy, your job is to count everybody, count the numbers.
Paul, and Paul, you broke up a bit, so I still didn't hear the entire question, but I see everybody raising their hands. So.
Yeah, so my question is, how many buyers is everybody working with right now? That they think in the next 12 months. They may not be out actively showing them houses right now, but they think in the next 12 months they're going to be working with these people. We're going to sell them a house.
Wow. Well, there's already 14. There's already 14 in the chat group. That's not counting everyone, so that's pretty good.
56 in the room, 14 in the chat. 70 buyers out of this group that's on the call right now. 70 buyers.
Wow.
Okay. What's the one thing that you can do with that number that you raised? What's the one thing that you could do for those buyers right now that you're not doing? I want everybody to think about that. What's the one thing that you could do for them? Because as Rick said, marry the house, don't, and date the interest rate. Okay. Josh is working on, he should have it done today or tomorrow. Josh is working on an infographic about stop the noise. Stop looking at the headlines and seriously take a look at why we're not in a bubble. Why we're not in a housing bust. That's not going to happen. So we're going to have that infographic and we're going to put it out there on the family Facebook page, but it's up to each of you to share that. Okay. Just think about what is that one thing that you could be doing with these 70 buyers right now. Amy, Tyler, and Steph, How many houses match their search parameters right now? There's
65 active,
65 active houses. When you started
Wow.
with them, how many?
maybe 6 or 7.
6 or 7. 10 times the inventory right now matching their searches, matching what their search parameters are. Okay,
And 5 or 6
Yeah.
price reduction, new ones coming every single day on their search.
yep, absolutely.
There's so much
Absolutely.
opportunity.
Yeah, there is such opportunity, guys. And that message we talked about before with Wes. 6 months ago, people are paying $40,000 over to get a house with a lower interest rate. And today we're seeing some purchase agreements below asking price and a higher interest rate. The payments are the frickin' same, aren't they? The payments are the same, but is that one thing that you've shared with your buyers? Okay, maybe a few of them, but 70 of them, what percentage of that 70% know that? A very small percentage, I guarantee it. So that's my exercise. Figure out the one thing that you're willing to commit to and do, and get a hold of your buyers and share the message with them.
Yeah, very good. Very good. And guys, I know I rambled a lot today, but I'm really excited about me personally, not you, learning, because I overheard my wife say something to someone else about looking at something as an opportunity versus a challenge. And I realized that while I coach on this stuff, I'm so busy being me during the day, I don't always use what I'm speaking about. So I'm using that today. Today, I'm saying, as much as it's exhausting to get up at 4 a.m, get a shower, get to the airport, fly, I'm saying this is an opportunity. I never know who I'm going to meet on the plane, or who might say something that could change my life forever, or what opportunity I have to open my mouth and change someone else's life. So let's look at everything as an opportunity, not a challenge. And think about what I said about the MLS. Maybe go back in and find people you forgot about. There's all kinds of ways to make a difference. And Paul, I'm going to use the exercise you just gave them on my buyer team on Friday morning. So
All right.
anyway, you guys have a great day. Love being with you guys. Text me if you need anything. If you don't have my number, Sarah, Sherry, or Paul or Amy can give it to you. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Okay. Everybody think about their one thing,
Thanks,
because
Rick.
that's the message I'm gonna give to on our on my video for Friday is the one. Everybody think about their one thing. I'm gonna send out a Google Doc and you're gonna put down your one thing, because we're gonna hold you accountable for that one thing. Okay, so start thinking about your one thing. Cool. Thanks, everybody. Good job, Rick.